Hi, I'm Steve, and welcome to Steve's Spots, where I visit those maybe not so well known places that you may not find in your normal tourist guide. Today I'm at 96 South Carolina. Now, you may not have heard of 96 South Carolina, but it was an important spot back in the mid 1700s and also during the Revolutionary War. Actually, two battles took place here during the Revolutionary War. First battle took place in 1775, and it was actually the first land battle in the South. The second battle took place in May and June of 1781, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're also going to talk about the town itself and how it got its name and why it's important. I really like this place because it's really very rural. It's off the beaten path. It's normally very quiet, calming, peaceful area. Today I happen to hit it when there seems to be a lot of traffic on the road and everybody seems to be mowing their yards. But hopefully you can hear me above all of that. Now, 96 is about 70 miles northwest of Columbia and about 180 miles northwest of Charleston, South Carolina. Well, first, let's talk a little bit about the town of 96 itself. The first permanent settlement was established by a trader named Robert Godey in 1753. Now, this was a good spot because it was the junction of four important trails/roads. The Charleston Road, which led to Charleston, South Carolina, the Whitehall Road that led to Augusta, Georgia, the Island Ford Road that led to the Saluda River Ferry, and the Cherokee Path that led to the Indian village of Keowee. So, how did it get its name? Well, there are several theories about this. One says that an Indian maiden crossed 96 streams and rivers to warn her British lover of an impending Indian attack. However, the more popular theory is that from here to the Cherokee village of Keowee, it's 96 miles. Well, it's not. It's more about 80 miles. However, there is evidence to suggest that this area was called 96 as far back as the 1730s, way before Robert Godey settled here. The town was like most small towns of this era, with a population of about 150 to 200 people. It contained shops, taverns, homes, obviously, and a two-story brick jail. As I mentioned, 96 was the junction of four important trails during that time frame. This is a view of the Island Ford Road, which led to the Saluda River Ferry. The sunken appearance is because of all the traffic that went on this road during that time. You can also walk the Cherokee Path, which led to the Cherokee village about 80 miles further on. What you see here are the actual boundaries of the town. Although no buildings exist from the original town, the Loyalists burned it to the ground when they left after the battle, these markers give you a good idea of the town's size. What was really surprising to me, though, was how small the town's layout really was. I mean, it only covers about 2, 3, maybe 4 acres at the most. Now, let's talk about the fort itself and the battle. The fort is called a star fort because of its shape. You can see that it has 8 points with a total height of about 17 feet. It was surrounded by a deep ditch and abatis. Today it's worn down quite a bit by 240 years of weather, and it's surrounded by a large forest which didn't exist back then. In 1781, Lord Cornwallis wanted to take control of South Carolina, and 96 was, because of its location, a major strategic fort. About 550 Loyalist troops led by Colonel John Cruger were packed into the little fort. They had also dug a trench from the fort to the town about 200 yards away to bring water and supplies to the fort. Although the trench no longer exists, signs mark its location so you can see how the Loyalists moved from the town into the fort. The colonists, numbering about 1,000, were led by Lieutenant Colonel Nathaniel Greene. They constructed siege trenches, typical tactics in those days, and began advancing towards the fort. As you can see in this depiction, this can be a very slow and laborious process. They also built a 30-foot tower from which marksmen could shoot over the wall into the fort. The Loyalists responded by adding 3 more feet to the height of the wall using sandbags. This provided additional protection for those in the fort. Now here you can see what the tower looked like from the fort. You can see it way in the distance there in the background. Also, keep in mind that the walls of the fort that you're seeing here are much lower than they were back in 1781. Once the colonists got close enough to the fort, about 100 to 200 yards away, they began to dig a tunnel in an attempt to place explosives under the fort to blow a hole in the wall in order to gain access for an assault. Now, this is what's called mining. Now, the siege lasted from May 22nd until June 19th. On June 18th, Nathanael Greene received news that more British troops were advancing to 96 to relieve the beleaguered fort. He then called off the mining attempt and ordered an all-out assault on the fort. After a very bloody battle with many casualties on both sides, the assault failed, and Greene ordered his men to withdraw. So, the fighting at 96 achieved pretty much nothing except to kill off about 200 men from both sides. The British remained in control of the fort, and the colonists had to withdraw. Ironically, just a few weeks after the battle, the Loyalists left 96 for good. But before they left, they burned the town down to the ground. 96 ceased to exist. However, this was not the end of 96. Many years later, about 2 miles up the road from 96, another town called Lodi was established in 1828. And in 1852, the name was changed to 96. It currently has a population of about 2,000 people. Now, I've given you a short summary of the battle. You really need to visit to get the whole picture. It's one of the lesser known battles of the Revolutionary War, but it is very, very interesting to be here and see all of this. Now, although the colonists did lose the battle, basically, it did result in the British eventually withdrawing from the area. As I mentioned earlier, I really love this area. It's very peaceful, very calm, out of the way, about 170 miles from Charleston. So if you ever get down to Charleston or you're heading down this direction, come and see 96. I think you'll really be satisfied, very happy with what you see here. This is Steve. I'll see you again next time on Steve Spots.